Did not even notice. All right. And I believe that we are live. All right. Welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for July 28th, 2017. The quick intro is now, longer intros later. I'm Dave Slusher, developer evangelist, and with me is my partner,
Josh Nerius. I'm also developer evangelist.
All right. And so we're this is week 2, I believe, number 2 of our experiment in simulcasting between Twitch and YouTube Live. So we simplified a little, cut out a certain site. So if you're on either of those two sites, welcome. I know that Twitch has kind of a different, sort of a different feel. So we're trying to incorporate, something that's satisfying for everybody on every site. So what we do here is we get together on Friday afternoons, we crack open a beer, we talk about coding, and we share our screen and we code some ServiceNow, and that we ease ourselves into the weekend that way. Hopefully we provide a little value for you guys, the viewers, but to be honest, about 85% of what we're doing this for is ourselves and our own mental health. So with that said, you want to give a quick introduction, Josh, of what we're going to be doing? We're carrying on from last week, so tell us a little about what we did and what we're doing this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So last week, well, actually, this would have been 2 weeks ago, because I think you guys had one last week without me, if I remember. Or
I don't
did you? I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, I was sick and I was on Dayquil, and so that's probably why I don't remember. And what we did is we actually started building an integration with Slack. So we created a Slackbot, we created an events integration, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to create this Slack points bot, and we actually called it Points Thing, that would track points when people type certain things in Slack. So we got the events API set up. We actually successfully started receiving events from Slack, and we built out a scripted REST API for that. We started tracking some points in a table in ServiceNow, and that's pretty much where we stopped. So we've got the basic plumbing there, but we don't have everything. We don't have all the interactions that we want. We don't necessarily, we're not necessarily capturing every case or every situation that we want to capture. And so we're just going to pick up where we left off.
All right. And so we're going to do just a very brief stint, because one of the things we need is a regular expression that captures everything we want to do. Did we mention what we're basically doing a clone of is the plus bot?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're implementing that same kind of functionality, but via ServiceNow. So this is one of those things. We have certain divisions of labor, amongst the two of us. It's like once we get to regular expression, it's like I'm fine. I'm happy to work with that. Once we get to OAuth, it's all Josh, and so we have these. We each have kind of these strengths. So before we do that, what are you drinking today, Josh? I hope it's not Dayquil.
No Dayquil today. I'm actually back on the regular live coding scheme of things here. So I've got a Ballast Point Commodore American Stout, nice dark beer. And I haven't had it in a long time, so we'll see how that goes.
And I went to the store today and got this. This is very much a situational beer. I was just in the mood for it. A Leinenkugel Summer Shandy.
The Summer Shandy.
Yes, it is literally beer and lemonade, and I'm in the mood for that. It is hot here, and it just seemed like a refreshing thing. So I got myself a 6-pack while I was getting lunch.
So kind of the opposite of what I've got here.
Yeah, man. Whatever. It's not quite as I presume it's not quite as hot in Chicago, but this is I need a little bit of what do you call it, respite from the heat. So okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to share. And again, my part of this will be pretty brief. What I'm basically going to do is I kind of I'm trying to not completely violate the spirit of Live Happy Hour, but just in the pre-work. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep, I do. And let me go ahead and turn off my camera. Here we go.
All right, and okay. So what we're trying to do is when you type somebody's name in Slack followed by ++, we want to be able to capture that. And so this integration is actually sending every message to our instance. We only care when something is ++. And so I tried to do, you see in here, I've got this test screen. Is that big enough for you guys to see? Let me do one more.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so I did a couple cases, one of which where the name that's being found is at the beginning of the string. I've got one where it's in the middle with a space before it. And then the case that you suggested is there may be a space between the name and the plus plus. So at this moment, I do believe I've got them all captured properly. So if you can think of some more test string to put in here, let's make sure that if you can think of a weird edge case.
So actually what we need to do is those braces or brackets or whatever those were.
Brackets around, so it might be brackets around.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is when it's a thing, we'll see what you have there in the screen. But when it's a person, there will be brackets around the actual person ID followed by the plus plus. So it'll be some ID. Yep.
And you want to not have the brackets go through. Is that right?
So this is an interesting question. So the thing is, maybe we do want the brackets to go through because we need to be able to differentiate between a thing and a person. And so maybe that's the way we do. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
So in that case, I actually don't have to do anything different because essentially this regex is saying optional. There is a, no, this is right. This is right. So the plus and the plus are necessary. A white space before optional, white space after optional, and then I'm just saying my one or more non-white space characters. This will not do an embedded space. So, it's going to only catch the last one, right? Which is, I think, what we want, right?
Yeah.
Now, can there be an embedded space between the brackets?
I wouldn't think so because
that's what that's going to find. Okay.
Yeah, because I would think at that point that would not be valid because it's going to be an actual contiguous ID. Somebody actually is just mentioning over in the chat, is the @ symbol necessary? So that's actually a good question.
Do we so
we might need to re-trigger this to remind ourselves of what this actually looks like coming from Slack.
So if I do this, if I do this, now an @ will be, say, @ Josh. That will also send, so it'll match on Josh. It will not include the @ as one of the things it sends. So is that what we want? I don't mind just throwing that. We can just throw that in there.
That might be. So over in the Slack channel,
problem being actually
send us a test. Let me see if I can get the output of that.
Problem here, though, is now there's an ordering here, which is to say, did that break? No, I guess because they're both optional. I was going to say, if you had a white space, I'm worried that the order where you have white space, the optional white space, the optional @ sign, I'm worried that I'm introducing an ordering there.
Oh, interesting.
So a character class that is that. But I can't do white space inside the character class.
Yeah, and like you feel about OAuth, I'm staring at this regular expression and marveling at its magic.
Oh, I got my caps lock on. All right, so I'm gonna not sweat that right now. Let us kind of keep in the back of our mind there could be an edge case. I'm thinking that this maybe won't be a problem. If we had a space now, because the only way that this would be a problem is if we needed it to be @ space the string, but that's not the case. It's still going to match. It's just not going to send the @ sign.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, I don't even think that would be valid because I don't believe Slack is going to send it that way.
Okay. So you're good with that. Let's call this, and why don't I just message that to you?
Yeah, that'd be good.
And so at this point, the other thing to be aware of, I use this because it's my favorite UI tool for this. And it should be, there's nothing terribly abstruse in here. Sometimes when you get to kind of very weird things like look ahead and look behind, zero width assertions and things like that, because this is under the hood using Ruby's regular expression match, which shouldn't be any different than ECMA 5 on this fairly vanilla regular expression, but also a thing to be aware of is that I'm not testing this in JavaScript right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
All right, I'm going to de-share my screen.
All right, and I will share mine. Let me
send this to you via Slack, or not by. Well, what should I do? I'll do it via Skype.
That works. And
except that I'm not connected to you.
Oh, there's a group Slack or a group Skype, or you can just put it in the LCHH channel. I've got that up.
Yeah, I'll do that in the LCHH channel. If I can find my minimized Slack. Hold on. All right, you proceed forward. I'll bring this up in a second.
Sounds good. Yeah, so as we talked about last week, the LCHH channel is front and center. So if anyone's out there, cool. I got it. All right, so let me copy this. Man, that's ugly, but cool. So what I want to do, I guess first is just sort of refamiliarize ourselves with where things are. So if I look at Slack, here's the Slack Points app. Here's the Slack events table. So I should be able to, I forgot we were actually storing these. I'm glad we're storing these because I should be able to see the things that were just sent through. So, interesting. So see that there, the @ sign is inside the brackets.
Okay. Does that mean we have to?
I don't know if that means anything.
So, okay, so I'm not going to reshare, but let me just try @ sign inside the brackets and see what we got there. So it just sends bracket @ whatever. So you might have to strip it out. I mean, it will find it.
Okay. So I think we'll be fine then. And
you may have to do a little post-processing.
Got it.
If that's, if that's not the way you want it. So I guess one of the things we didn't, like an assumption we didn't really work out is, do we want what gets pushed over the wire via this, like what gets passed on to the other end of the regular expression? Do we want that to be production ready, like usable via whatever consumes it, or is something else going to do a little processing step? Because it is kind of a drag to have a second processing step. Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, I guess part of it's going to depend on what we decide to do with the data afterwards. I don't know.
How about this? I'll leave this up, and if we decide we want to do something else, we can just make the design decision that we want the regular expression to do all the work. So we're not going to take the results of the match and then do something else to it. And if we need to alter, I'll do that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So what we can do, let me go ahead and go to. I just want to find the processing logic that we wrote last week. This is logic that I barely remember. Thanks.
Anything written 2 weeks ago was written by a different person.
Exactly. That person is not the person talking to you today. So we've got our user ID. We're doing that out of the payload object. And so at this point, we can't assume this is a user ID. So we kind of need to adjust our parsing logic a little bit to say, we want to get these matches, but we don't know if this is actually a user ID. So I'm just going to call this matches.
And the other thing is we're not looping on that, right? So
yeah, I was just doing a hard-coded index or going to the first index, which we don't want. So actually, so even though I'm better, I still have this cough. So bear with me on that. I guess
don't we want to in the matches object? Don't we want to loop on 1 to the end? Like 0 is the whole thing, and
I think we
1 to
do.
the end is capturing parentheses, something like that.
Let me do this. I'm going to test that theory by just doing a debug thing. Okay. So actually, we'll do this. We'll say, Dave, let's just pick random people and get some various things and see how that goes through. And now if I go take a look at that table, go look at this Slack event. There we go. So we've got our text. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to throw this into REST API Explorer so I can actually test my scripted REST API. So let's go to the scripted REST resource, and we'll explore this. And we'll pass this in. I think that's all I need to do. So now when I pass this in, if I've got the debugger up, we should be able to watch it and see what it does. So let's do that. There's my message for the breakpoint, and let's step over it. Excuse me. So this point matches as an array. Oh, that's interesting. So it's an array, but it's saying no variable found. That's a little weird. I wonder.
I'm not sure what that means.
I wonder if it didn't actually. I wonder if it's an empty array. Like maybe matches didn't actually come back with anything, or maybe this didn't work the way we wanted it to.
What we can do, so let me. Why don't I offline, so I don't have to do it for the screen. I can do this in the background. Is just pick any random instance, and let me just verify that given that test string, if you can post that test string into the Slack channel, I'll cut and paste it there, and I'll use that. I'll actually do this I'll do this via JavaScript. So I'll double check that this is working and just remove that as a variable while you work on other stuff.
Okay, that's fine. So this point, I guess what would probably make sense then is while you work on that, do you want me to start talking about sort of the next phase of responses?
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. So while Dave works on the regular expression stuff, where we're at now is we're posting these messages, and then, oh yeah, that's an interesting point. Is the ++ bot in LCHH? Oh yeah, we don't want that here. Interesting. Okay, so well,
I don't know that it is. Oh,
yeah,
it is.
It
just joined.
Invited. Yeah, just a few minutes
went
ago.
it out.
Yeah. So what we can do for now, just to work through this and whatnot, is I'm going to temporarily change. This is going to mess up the regular expression, but just for now, I want to change the trigger. So we'll just say equals equals. I don't know. I just don't want it conflicting with the actual points that ++ bot is tracking. So, but what we want to do is when we actually get these points, we want to respond. And to respond, we need to actually send a REST message back to Slack with some kind of response. And so, when you look at the experience today, when somebody gets points, you get this nice message back saying, "Hey, congrats, so-and-so's got points." And that happens in a separate call. So it's not a response to the original event. So there's nothing that allows us to directly respond to the event and have that response go directly into the channel. We actually have to take an action. So at this point, what we're going to look at is to start wiring up the outbound call from ServiceNow to Slack to actually post stuff. So with that, we're going to go back to Slack and see if we can get back to the documentation and whatnot.
Oh, and actually, one thing that we're missing from the regular expression is the G flag to do global, to find everything in it. That is actually something that we're.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So taking that same string and running it in the background, I just did a debug of the length of the array and actually saw 3. So this may actually just be like when we add in the code to loop on it, this may actually just be an idiosyncrasy of the debugger. So.
Interesting. Okay, that's good to know. That is good to know. So we're gonna go into points thing, and we've got features and functionality. What we need to look at is how to make a call. So we're gonna look at, I believe, it's not interactive messages. It's not incoming webhooks. It's the web API. So let's look for that. Just open this in a new window. Where is the web API? There we go. And the method we want, man, my cough just won't stop today. I need to find a list of all the actual methods. So where is, here we go, methods. And what we want to do is channel, I think it's channel.send, or is it chat? Yeah, it's chat. So chat.postMessage is going to send a message to a channel. So if we look at this, we can find the endpoint we need to call. So we need to call this endpoint, and we need to pass a token. This token actually is going to be the Slackbot token. We established that earlier. We need to pass in the channel, which means we actually need to determine what the ID of the channel is. So there's actually a little bit of work we have to do to actually retrieve the list of channels so we can figure out which channel we want to send to. And then, actually, you know what? We might not need to do that, because if we look at this, notice how we've got, is there a channel in here somewhere? Yeah, there is. So on the incoming message, we actually get the channel ID. So we're going to get the channel ID from the message. That way we know where we want to send it. What else do we need? And then beyond that, it's just a matter of passing in what we want to send. So really, it's just these three required parameters. We already know the channel. We can define our text as we go, and then we got to do the token. So before I actually wire this up in ServiceNow, as we always do, I'm going to just test this in an external tool. I'm going to use a tool called paw. And so let me go ahead and open this, drag that in. And we'll go ahead and paste this out there. This is going to be a post. And if I run it, of course, it's going to fail, and it's going to tell us, we need to actually provide authentication. So let me just drag this window off the screen for a minute. I'm going to see if I can get the token that we want without sharing it for the world. Let's see.
That, by the way, if you've never done, for those people who have never done this live coding kind of stuff, every so often when you run across something like that, and it's usually, you think about it 1 second before you start to put it on the screen, when you think, oh, that may not be something that I want, exposing to the world.
Yeah, it is absolutely true. So I think I found the token here. It's this thing called the bot user OAuth access token. And for similar reasons, I'm going to drag paw off the screen and get this thing ready to go. We need to actually, so this is an argument called token. That's interesting. So present these parameters as application www URL encoded or post. Okay, so that's interesting. So it's not going to be JSON. This is going to be a URL encoded form, which means I need to pass the token in a form. So bear with me one moment, and I'm going to define this. And I'm going to say, I can actually, I think I can obscure this. Yeah, there's this thing in paw called a secure value. And all right, there we go. You can't see what I'm doing right now, but now that I've done this, there we go. So I'm going to drag Slack back out. And or not Slack, paw back out. And so what's cool, what Slack or what paw is doing, man, I keep calling this thing Slack, is you can set a secure value. And so even though the value of a parameter in a URL encoded form is not by default secure, paw can obscure it for us, so I can still put this up on the screen.
Very nice.
So that's cool.
You've migrated to this from Postman, more or less, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's unfortunately it's not free, and I don't think it's cross-platform, but it's one of those things where, just some of the quality of life stuff like this really makes it worthwhile at times.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get the channel ID from here, and let's see, what's the name of that? I think it was just channel. Yeah, it's just channel. And then we have this thing called text. And we'll just say hello from paw, and we'll see if this works. And in theory, if this does work, we should hopefully, yeah, we got a response. It looks good. Let's go to the LCHH channel, and there we go. We have points thing, hello from Pa. So we actually are getting, we're successfully sending a message.
All right. So at this point, so is the getting of that token in the code, how big a deal is that? Is that going to be the next thing you need to do? Or is that something, I got a little lost on that, if that was already something we had somewhere else.
Yeah, so what happened is, and I need to read a little bit more about how this is going to work in the long term, but on the, let me see, can I obscure this or no? It doesn't look like I can. So on the API or the developer page in Slack, there is a section for OAuth and permissions, and they've pre-generated an access token and a bot access token that we can just use. Okay. So these appear to be static. And at least for the purposes of what we're doing today,
it's static for your
for the bot user.
For your bot. Okay.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense because you're if you think about it, this thing has to be able to consistently communicate, and without that token, you wouldn't necessarily know how to do that. I think there are some considerations where if you're publishing an app and then you were installing this Slack app on multiple instances of Slack, you would potentially have to do something to dynamically figure out what that token is when it gets installed. But we're not worried about that today. So, okay. So at this point, I'm going to go
in
back.
ServiceNow. You can hard code that to configure it one place, whether that's a property or whatever, but it will be consistent across the life of this thing on Slack.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just going to create one called bot token, and I'm going to drag this off the screen and save it. There we go. Close it. And there we go. All right. So I created a system property that holds the token. And at this point, we want to come up with our outbound logic to post this thing back. So right now we're doing this in a business rule. We're going out there and we're doing all this stuff here. I definitely would want to abstract this out of the business rule, but for simplicity today, I'm just going to work on building it in line and then move this out somewhere else later. So we want a REST message. So we're going to say var rm equals new REST message v2. We're going to say set basic auth. No, we don't want to set basic auth. We want to say set HTTP method to post. We want to set the endpoint, and let me go to PAW and grab the endpoint. This is probably something you'd want to parameterize in some way later as well, in case you wanted to change that endpoint. Let's see, what else do we need? We need to...
I know that we did this not that long ago, but I don't even remember how the Erl encoded form... do we have to do that parameter by parameter?
Really good question.
I know we did this because then there was something that was it was when I was doing the episode with Andrew, where we thought something was going to be, we were curious as to why something was not working, and it turns out that it was Erl encoded, right? Where was that with you? I've forgotten.
Yeah, actually, I remember. I think I was on there. So we'll have to go back and rewatch that episode of live coding to see what we did. But I think we are going to have to build this because I don't know if there's a simple and quick way to do that. So if we do var body string equals whatever, and we can just build this out. So we'll say body string plus equals, and then we'll start with token. Token equals, is it URL encode? Yeah. URL encode gs.get property. And now the key is, what's the name of that property? Oh, there it is. X SNC Slack points dot Slack bot token. That's a mouthful.
And you were trying to avoid popping it back up on the screen, but other than that, it would have been 1/2 second before I decided I'm just going to click that, open it, and copy and paste that rather than type it, because
yeah, that's the only reason I didn't click that to copy and paste it. So now we've got that. Now we want and channel,
right?
Just to be safe. I don't think we have to URL encode the token in the channel, but I just want to be safe. So, oh, that's going to come from, that's going to come from the payload object. So let's take a look at that. The payload object is going to be .event.channel. So payload object.event.channel. I think that should do it. And then finally, text equals, and this we definitely need the URL encode.
Do you want to just go for broke and put in essentially your actual real message?
Yeah, I mean, we can try that. Let me think. What do we want this to be? So we want it to say, congrats.
We want to, so this involves looking up, so we're already doing the thing. So we've got the Slack user points. So you want to say their points are now whatever, right?
Yeah, so congrats. It's going to be user ID, although this is going to be interesting because we have, at this point, we're assuming there's a single ID. So we actually are going to have to loop through and do this call either multiple times or, I don't know. We'll figure that part out.
It depends. Do you want to have one message with everybody in it? Or, tell you what, for right now, to simplify it, we don't need to kill ourselves at this point. Let's assume it's, let's worry about the multiple things later.
Yeah, we can work up to that. So congrats user ID plus you now have, and then we should be able to say gr Slack user, and man, this wrapping is nasty. Dot points. Points. I think that'll do it. So there's our body string, and then we say arm. Yeah, so we're going to set the request body, and then response dot execute. Is that it? I don't think there's anything else we need to send. That should be all the stuff. So taking a look at this matches object briefly, if we just assume we're going for the first one, I'm going to go back to what we had before. I'm just going to say user ID equals, I'm going to go directly to 1. And then I guess the other thing would be, because we changed our trigger to equals equals, so if I just change both of these to equals, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct.
Cool. So, yeah, because they're already escaped, and okay, that makes sense. Let's try it.
You probably don't, though I don't want to push it right now. You probably don't even need to escape them because I don't think the equals is the plus is an operator in the regular expression.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I don't think the equals is an operator in the same way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I don't think it'll hurt though, will it? You can.
It won't hurt, and I just. I actually did it unescaped, and it was working rubular, but escaped is not harmful.
Got it. Okay. So so at this point, what I want to open debugger again. Oh, we never actually let that last transaction complete. So let's try this again. Will that trigger the debugger? It will not. Why did it go straight through?
Didn't you close your debugger and not open?
No, I opened it.
Okay.
I wonder.
It's not paused.
Yeah, it's not paused. Am I doing what I think I'm doing? I think I am. I'm passing this in. I'm running it against the thing. This is the process points business rule. It's running after.
It is a synchronous business rule.
Yeah. Let me breakpoint on the first one. So let me open the debugger again and try the rest the request again. Oh, it's coming right back. But let's see if it's actually doing anything. We've got nice one, Corey. We've got a postman over in the Slack channel. I don't know why that's making me laugh too much.
This looks like it might be from Sabato Gigante. I don't know what that is.
So the real question is, are we getting the payloads that I'm posting? And we are. So here's the payload. Oh, is there something else in the trigger? Current.uaction. Oh, that's weird. Well,
that is from the main channel.
Is that?
Yes, I saw. Is it Jay Faree? That was a
thing from General?
Yeah, he posted that recently in.
Huh. Okay. So maybe we're getting data about more channels, which is possible. Oh, I know why, actually. I know exactly why. It's because we changed our operator to equals. And so we're actually capturing messages.
Well, yeah, it's in the middle of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is in it. But are we listening to every channel across the whole Slack?
I'm thinking
I thought we weren't. I thought we were only listening to LCHH.
I thought we were too. Well, so here's what happened is we let me think about this for a second. We added the bot to the LCHH channel, but we didn't add. I don't know if there's a way to filter it down to just a single channel. Actually, let's take a look at that because I'm actually really curious now because I feel like that's important to know. So where's the events API? Let's go to events.
Yeah, it seems a little coarse that you would add it to any channel and then it's now acting on every channel.
Yeah. So subscribe to the event types you want. I think it's channel, what is it? Where's the message one? Is it IAM? Message.channels. Maybe that's it. A message was posted to a channel. And events API compatibility. All right. Huh. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to look at something off screen really quick, just to make sure that I'm not exposing data that I don't want to. Okay. So here's the configuration for the messages.channels that we've subscribed to. So we've subscribed to this event, and the description is just a message was posted to a channel. So that's
and so I'm seeing in the Slack actually that somebody said Points Thing was actually invited to the general channel. So it.
Oh, it was? Okay. Got it.
It's not that it's listening to the whole Slack. This is.
Okay. I feel better.
Okay. Not from you and me, but from someone.
Got it.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate.
That's all we really needed to know is is it doing something we didn't expect? So it's not doing this for channels it's not invited to. We just didn't know it was invited.
Yeah. That's good. So we're not getting the fire hose. We appreciate whoever felt that it was that
was Casey.
Ready enough. That is helpful. So okay, so at this point, trying to get back on track. I'm gonna run this thing one more time. I don't know why we're actually not hitting the debugger. So I think I'm just going to see if I can log this instead. Because that is just not pausing. So, the other question would be when to run. So this is after. Let's look at the actions. We are... Yeah, this is just when something gets created. So, and then if we go back to the resource, we're saying if request.data.event.text contains ==, go ahead and insert the event. Huh. All right, so to logging we go.
Wait. So you're debugging the creation of it.
Yeah, so I'm debugging the creation.
Why don't you also put the breakpoint right at the top of number 3 right here in the REST resource?
That's a fair point. So
and we can at least see. So the REST resource is getting hit, and maybe we can see. We can debug. We can step through that and see what's happening.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually did pause. So it seems like maybe there's something with that business rule. So let's step in. So it's not a challenge, which is good. And if it contains equals. Oh, that's interesting. It just
text doesn't have x equals. Let's go back to.
Oh! I know why. Yeah, it's because this is the definition of pepcac. I've been using the same sample data, and there is no equals. That is a silly error. All right, so let's run that. Good catch. We can go in. Okay, so now we're creating this thing. And as soon as we insert, we should hit the next breakpoint. And there we go. So we're in the rule. Is it going to step in? There we go.
Let me. I realize I've been so enraptured with this that I have not checked the chat for a little bit. Let's see if there's any. Ooh, there's a lot. The question, yes, the question about somebody was asking about whether migrating away from Rhino. Not that I know of. Okay. Yeah, so not much past that. Okay. I just want to make sure we're current with that. And on Twitch, we have nothing so far. So good.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got our event object. We've got our text. We'll go one more, and let's see what user ID is. So user ID is now... So we're back to where we were before. We actually are getting the first one, which is fine.
Brackets and everything at this point.
Yeah, brackets and everything at this point. And so let's just go through it. Step through. And before I let this thing actually execute, let's take a look at that body string. Where is that? So token equals, whoops. Tokens in the body string, yay. I'll go ahead and reset that. And let's see if we get a response. So at this point, we'll go back here.
There is an object. I don't know what the...
LCHH. So it did not appear to work.
Can you inspect that response in the debugger? It looks like not.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that I can. I would have to do some additional work to open up the response, but I can do that. So let me just do that now. I'm going to go in here and let's say body equals response.getBody. See if I can actually spell that correctly.
O in response.
Here we go. And I think let's do this status code. And that way we can at least see what's going on there. So I'll save it. Let me let this thing run. And actually, I'm going to turn off this early breakpoint now because we don't need it. So we're actually triggering what we think we are. We'll run the request again. And it's been paused. All right.
Yeah, and I was in Orlando 2 days ago, and I demoed. It's amazing to me, like I kind of feel like we've hit the point where everyone has seen the JavaScript debugger, but I keep demoing it for people, and it keeps blowing minds. So
awesome. Yeah, the debugger is pretty awesome stuff. No question about that. So there's a response. And do we have a response body? It is undefined. So
let's do the status code. Let's see what the status code is. So that implies to me that something went wrong with this. Do we have outbound API debugging on? Outbound HTTP?
Yeah, we do. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, this is another one that sometimes I forget to look at, but it is so helpful. Illegal access to outbound HTTP in Slack.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, that explains that now, doesn't it?
Indeed it does.
So we're going to cost ourselves debugging.
That's
so here's what I would suggest at this point. In keeping with my strategy that I've been doing everything else in, is I think maybe we don't want to have all that logic actually in the business rule. I think we want a script include.
Yeah, I think
we got about 15 minutes. I don't know if you want to be refactoring now.
Let's just try setting it to async and let's debug the old way. But that's actually a really good point. And we kind of mentioned that at the beginning, but it's something that I guess this would drive you to do the right thing early, instead of taking the easy way out, like what I was trying to do here, which may or may not actually be a good thing to do. And
just to kind of reiterate, the reason why we would want that in the script include is so that we could, like right now, we're not going to be able to call that API from a synchronous business rule because the system doesn't let you do that because who knows that transaction may take a while. Right? Yeah. So it doesn't let you do that in a synchronous. Basically, that would make the insertion of that record hold for that external API, which could be a long time or never. And so you got to be async. However, if you're async, you can't run the debugger. And so if we factored that code, that logic out into a script include, we could actually call the script include from scripts background and debug the script include, and then just switch it over and call it from the async business rule. So it allow us to debug it and also do, and when we're calling it from scripts background, we won't have that. It will also go through immediately because, it's not got a business rule it's trying to protect.
Yeah. The other thing in particular with REST messages is because of the fact that we've got outbound REST logging, it does make it, even if we can't directly debug it, it does give us a place to go look for it, which is still good. So here's the thing. Do you remember the method name for setting the log level? I'm just going to go to the developer portal and take a look because I don't
remember it. Yeah.
I think it's probably set log level, but I don't want to just randomly take stabs in the dark at stuff. So let's look at REST message v2, and where is the log level? Yeah, it is set log level. All right, so we're going to set the log level to all. I just want to see everything that's coming back. And we'll run this again.
All right, so now debugger will not trigger.
Right. But we still, okay, so we do get a response here, which we are... So there's a source. It's coming from business rule process points. There's the request. It's not giving me body. Is that the one that we actually just triggered? Let me sort this. Make sure we're sorting correctly. Okay. This is probably why. We didn't actually set the content type.
So, yeah. I have run across the same thing before too, right? I can't remember if it was LCHH or somewhere else, but yeah, the content type. We've had a lot of discussion of the content type, right? In that, like if you're you got a webhook with not XML and not JSON, right? That was that blog post. The last blog post I made was about how, and I cannot remember what the thing was. Maybe it was Earl encoded with that's WorldMate. Does a weird content type, and it's not something that can be automatically marshaled, so you have to do weird stuff with it.
Got it. Yeah. Content type is important.
That actually that right there could very well be why it's not working.
I think it is. Well, yeah, because if you look at that response, if we go back to this, this is a response body from Slack, and it's saying error missing post type.
Right.
So. that would pretty much confirm it. So we'll post this again. And
hey,
congrats.
check that out. I saw
Nice.
it. I have Slack open. I saw it immediately.
Nice. So now, actually, let's do this in real time. So let's say Dave Slusher ++. Will it work? Will it work? Will it work? No.
Equal.
Oh, yeah. I have to do it a second time, maybe. Oh, there we go. It just took a moment. So Dave Slusher now has 1 point. And now here's the other problem. And we're running out of time, so we can't fix this now. But watch this. I'm going to give myself points. So that's an example of something that we probably want to fix at some point. But anyway, setting that aside. Beer has a point. Josh has a point. I don't know why.
Now we're all just screwing around.
I kind of like this equals thing. I don't know. It's like our own weird flavor on this thing.
The problem with that is it's got a lot of false positives.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That is fair. So at this point, I officially have as many points as feedback does, and that is the first time that has ever happened. And I'm really excited about it. So
what if you called it MoneyBot and you just made it $? That was the operator.
Well, and so actually that's an interesting thing that I think I'd like to spend some time on getting into. I think this is probably a good point to start winding down, but thinking about the future of what this could be, because there are a number of things we can do. We can create a table and we can store responses, and then we can get random responses and use those. And so we can, say clever statements. We can add stuff like, money. I don't know. There's also all sorts of stuff we can do and make this configurable. Oh, cool. ++'s bot is gone, so we can actually go back to the right trigger. So I'm going to go back and fix that now. Just because it's such muscle memory to go and actually type ++.
Yeah, and you absolutely do have to escape that plus, or else it'll be a invalid regex.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we've got it here, and then we also need this in the business rule, or I'm sorry, in the scripted REST resource.
This is one of those things where I'll have to admit that it bugs me a little, in that we've got double work happening on that, right? Where in your condition, you're doing the contains on the ++, and then later on we're doing the regex on the ++. I almost kind of wish that could be factored down to a single thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, so the original thought, I guess it really comes down to processing, because one of the things on this side is we're saying if it doesn't contain ++, we're not doing anything. We're not putting it into that table. Mm-hmm. And so we still want to capture, I think, the whole body, because we need that information for making other decisions about it. But I also agree. I agree. I don't know. It doesn't feel quite right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you're using it as kind of a course sieving function, right? Which is, if it doesn't have ++, there's nothing further to do.
Yeah.
But it could have ++ and not have further things to do, because it could have ++ in the middle of it, but not like none of those regular expressions match.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be a code snippet. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons that ++ could end up in there. So, which is, I think, I don't remember how the other bot handles this, but I feel like some of the time random stuff gets points or loses points because of that.
Well, here's the thing: if you just type the string ++, it's gonna match the contains, and then the regex will fail, right?
Right. Got it. Yay, we now have, so you can also, in a very real way, see the async processing happening, and sort of there's a tiny little bit of a delay there as the job runs on whatever, however often it wakes up. And then when it did run, they actually both ran at the same time. So I just kind of thought that was interesting. Mm-hmm. So if we do, no, plus plus doesn't do anything.
I think I'm actually. I don't think I'm helping here. I think actually that I'm gonna table my uneasiness about that, and I'll kind of think in the future if there's something you could do. Well, so it kind of makes sense to me. We factor this into a script include. It makes sense to me to maybe have some kind of like a contain so the same logic that does the matches. You do that same, so you wrap a function in the script include, which is get matches, and up here you call get matches and you look to see whether it's 0. That's ultimately, I think, the solution.
I could see that, and I kind of like that just because it consolidates the logic. If we end up deciding at some point you want to change, maybe the trigger is not plus plus, you want to make that configurable.
Right. If you do, exactly. If you do something like that, you've got 2 places.
Right.
And if you do the other thing, you've got 1 place.
Yeah. Now, part of this too, I do feel like is just a little bit of a limitation of the Slack API, the Events API. I would prefer to say, in that Events API, when you just define your subscription, give me the ability to filter down the subscription, and then we don't even have to worry about this. We're just going to process everything we get. But that's just not how it is. So,
all right. I think at this point, man, that hour flew by. Good God.
It really did.
I keep getting surprised at how late it is.
Yeah, it really did fly. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn the camera back on here if I can find it. I know it's somewhere. Stop sharing screen. There we go. And there's the camera button. All right.
So I feel good about that. We've got the two-way communication going. You've got the token, kind of set up in the properties. So you're able to respond to the channel. Clearly, there's a lot of fine tuning. Going on. The basic functionality is working, but there are a lot of edge cases that are unaddressed. There's we're at like the 70% mark, which means we only have another 90% to go.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably just about right. Because I do think once you start getting into things like, looping through all of the potential, who all got the scores and looping through them. And do you want to, there's like, we could do leaderboards or have administrative functionality or, other stuff like that. There's just lots of other directions to go with it. But the basics are there.
Yeah, the mixed blessing of like doing this thing where we're integrating with the LCHA channel on the Slack is now we have a third thing to look at for the discussion.
Yeah,
the other side. So
okay. Which is why we need to integrate them, and we need to start taking YouTube comments, and people can get plus pluses directly from YouTube.
I like it all. Okay. All right. So I feel good about that. Somewhere in the, I don't know. I think I will be unavailable next week and the week after. So we'll have to work out, when the next one of these happens and who the players are. I'll be out of the country. I tell you, 4.5.
Wow, that's a
lot on context because I've been thinking about this all day.
So I'm gonna go with this is actually, I'm not enjoying it at all. I would say it's a 2.75 for me right now. It's not a summer beer, and it's actually a bit bitter, which is not what I was looking for. I wanted a sweeter stout, but that's okay. So just means I didn't drink very much, and
I think it's funny that your fancy ballast point is way lower than my grocery store Leinenkugel. But sometimes it goes out. There are times when the Tecate is a 5.0 in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if there's a beach involved. So
exactly. All right. So with that, we are going to call this one a show, and we'll figure out when and who is on the next show soon. The only thing I know about that for sure is that it won't be me. So
sounds good. We'll let you know one way or the other.
And if you're in Hyderabad or Pune or Delhi, I'll hopefully see you in a couple of weeks. So there you go.
Cool. Safe travels, Dave.
All right. thanks everybody, and thanks for watching Live Coding Happy Hour.
Cheers.
Thank you.